stopping climb. Liam is pinned at the control terminal, a soldier fighting onto impossible fronts. Just a few feet away, Ilara is a blur of desperate motion, locked in a life-or-death struggle with a fanatical custodian. But Liam's battle is silent, invisible, and just as deadly. The negative resonance, no longer a subtle hum but a psychic sledgehammer, is pummeling him directly through the machine. His screen is a chaotic storm of black and violet static. The hum has intensified into a bone-jarring vibration that feels like it is trying to crack his skull open. His mind is a battlefield flooded with visions of pure terror. He sees his past mistakes, his deepest regrets, but it's worse than that. The resonance shows him the future, a future happening asterisk right now, asterisk if he fails. He sees billions of people across the globe, their faces contorting in agony as they simultaneously collapse under a wave of absolute despair. The weight of the world is literally on his shoulders. But Liam is more than just a scholar. He's a tech whiz, a digital warrior. He fights back against the psychic onslaught, his fingers flying across the keys, his expertise a shield against the horror. He quickly realizes a simple shutdown is impossible. The system is a fortress reinforced with countless fail-safes designed to prevent exactly this. His only chance is to be clever, to be surgical. He can't destroy the machine, he has to poison it. He needs to introduce a frequency anomaly, a glitch in the harmony to corrupt the data stream and derail the harmonic alignment. As Liam dives into the code, a chilling presence falls over him. The Dean, his ritual momentarily disturbed, has turned his attention from the amplifier. He watches Liam's frantic work not with alarm, but with a cold, detached contempt. He is utterly confident in his creation's security. With a flick of his wrist, he redirects to custodians from Ilara. Their new target is Liam. He seeks discord. The Dean's voice cuts through the chaos. Smooth as polished ice, we shall offer him the silence he craves. The two custodians advance, their movements unnervingly calm, their eyes devoid of anything but zeal. The pressure mounts. Liam is forced to type one-handed. His other hand clutches Etherid's tiny, precious gift, the counter-harmonic device component. He presses it desperately against the terminal's power source, trying to siphon enough energy to activate it later. A final, desperate gambit. The custodians are on him. An unyielding hand clamps down on his shoulder, the grip like steel, ready to tear him away. Time is gone. With a final, convulsive effort, Liam slams his finger down, executing the sequence. The effect is not a clean shutdown. It's a violent, systemic seizure. The colossal harmonic amplifier, once humming, now shrieks. A high-pitched, piercing wail erupts from the machine, the first truly loud sound the entity has ever made. The violet cables pulse and flash like severed nerves. Liam's screen bleeds to a solid, angry red, flashing a single beautiful message, critical frequency deviation. He did it. He corrupted the ritual, but the machine is still alive, and now it is enraged. In the next instant, Liam is violently ripped away from the terminal. His desperate act of sabotage bought them precious seconds, but it has focused the entity's full, unimaginable fury directly upon them. The true nightmare has just begun. The amplification chamber is no longer a place of quiet ritual. It's a war zone. Steel rings against steel, psychic energy screams, and the air is thick with the scent of ozone and desperation. We find Liam having just successfully sabotaged the terminal, being violently ripped away by two custodians. Their strength is immense, fueled by a terrifying fanaticism, and amplified by those strange silver pins they wear. Liam is tough, but he's outmatched, struggling against a tide of brute force. Every grunt and every blow feels visceral as he's pinned down, the weight of their blind devotion crushing him. Meanwhile, Ilara is locked in her own desperate battle. She's not a trained soldier, but she's a brilliant strategist, and that's what's keeping her alive. She sees the patterns in her opponent's movements, the predictability born from their unwavering focus on the ritual. She uses the very chaos of the chamber as her weapon, ducking behind humming conduits and using the unstable environment to her advantage. This isn't a clean fight. She's fighting for survival, for the world itself. She targets joints, weak points, anything to gain an edge. This scene is so crucial because it's the ultimate expression of her character arc, has transformed from a quiet academic into a warrior, proving that her greatest weapon has always been her mind, her ability to analyze and adapt, even in the heat of a physical brawl. In a fleeting moment, as she breaks free from a hold, her eyes catch a glint of metal on the floor. It's the counter-harmonic device component, the small, intricate piece of Etherid's technology that Liam was trying to install. It lies dangerously close to the base of the massive amplifier, a tiny key to their salvation. This device isn't just a delay tactic. It's their only real hope of neutralizing the negative resonance for good. Without a second thought, she lunges for it, the world narrowing to that single point of focus. A custodian's fist smashes into the spot where her head was just a second ago, the impact shaking the metal plating beneath her feet. Watching this unfold, the Dean's mask of calm finally shatters. The failure of the harmonic alignment. Physical intrusion of these disciples of discord, it's all too much. His composure cracks, and he lets out a raw, furious scream. His voice, once so measured and serene, is now a ragged cry of pure rage. He bellows at his custodians, ordering them to abandon the fight, to forget the intruders. Reboot the system, stabilize the alignment. He shrieks, his priorities laid bare. In his mind, Liam and Alara are nothing more than a temporary nuisance. The only thing that matters, the only thing that has ever mattered, is achieving the great silence. His fanaticism is absolute. Alara scrambles to her feet, the cold metal of the device clutched tightly in her hand. Just as she regains her footing, the psychic pressure in the room skyrockets. A wave of violet energy erupts from the amplifier as it attempts to self-correct. From Liam's sabotage, the surge is powerful enough to throw Liam and the two custodians holding him backward, creating a precious fleeting moment of separation. And in that moment, the chaos stills. Alara finds herself standing alone right beside the colossal, humming machine. In her hand, she holds the one thing that can destroy it. She knows what she needs to do, but it will require a moment of unbroken concentration to integrate the device into the amplifier. S-core systems. But there's no time. The Dean, his eyes burning with a murderous light, is descending from the daze. He's no longer just an observer. He is now the final obstacle. A high priest of silence coming to personally extinguish the last spark of hope. The stage is set for a final, desperate confrontation. What an incredible cliffhanger. Standing at the base of the colossal, world-ending amplifier is Alara. In her hand, she clutches the key to it all, Ethered's counter-harmonic device. It's a tiny piece of technology, but it holds the power to silence the machine forever. But she's not alone. Blocking her path is the Dean. The scholarly facade he once wore has been completely shed, revealing the true zealot beneath. He is draped in dark robes, and his eyes fixed on the device in Alara's hand, burn with a terrifying, absolute conviction. He doesn't rush her. Instead, he advances with slow, measured steps, radiating the unnerving calm of a true fanatic. His voice, when he speaks, isn't filled with threats, but with a chilling religious fervor. You seek to preserve discord, he says, his tone dripping with disdain. The great silence offers unity, a true unity born from all suffering. It is a higher form of knowledge, something you cannot comprehend. You are nothing but a faint echo of Ethered's weakness, clinging to a world of noise and pain. His words hang in the air, a twisted justification for the entity's horrifying plan. This isn't just a battle of good versus evil anymore. It's a terrifying ideological war. As the Dean finally lunges, battered but not broken, Liam makes a desperate move. He grabs a heavy piece of fallen acoustic equipment and, with a defiant roar, hurls it across the chamber. The metal crashes into the amplifier's main power conduit. A shower of sparks erupts, and a wave of electrical feedback surges through the room. The static interference overwhelms the Dean's focus. For a split second, his silver pen flashing erratically. It's not much, but it's the opening Alara needs. She frantically scans the massive machine, searching for the correct port for the device. The precious seconds tick by, enraged by Liam's relentless interference. The Dean screams a final, chilling command to his remaining custodians, one of whom is still locked in combat with Liam. Initiate the broadcast now. Forget the intruders. The deadline is up. The end is here. Just as Alara finds the port, the Dean tackles her. His grip is surprisingly strong. His fingers like iron as he tries to pry the device from her hand. They struggle. Brutal and silent dance against the backdrop of the humming, monstrous machine. With a surge of adrenaline, Alara rams her elbow into his solar plexus. The impact forces a gasp from him, and in that same motion, she slams the counter-harmonic device into the port. A faint blue light flickers to life on the tiny component. It's online. It's drawing power. But it needs time to charge, time to initiate the counter frequency that will save them all. Time they don't have. The Dean recovers, his face a mask of pure hate and desperation. He raises his ancient quartz anchor, the very tool he used to channel the entity's power. He's no longer trying to stop her, he's trying to destroy her. The battle has changed. He knows he just needs to crush Alara before the counter frequency finishes charging and shatters. His dream of a silent universe. And let me tell you, this chapter is an absolute game changer. It's where everything we've been building towards finally explodes onto the page, and the true nature of the horror is revealed in the most spectacular way. So, grab your headphones because you won't want to miss a single detail. The chapter opens with the tension cranked to 11, the counter-harmonic device. Alara's last hope is just a tiny blue light, a single defiant spark against the monstrous violet glow of the amplifier. The Dean, seeing his grand, terrifying plan about to crumble, makes a final, desperate move. He's not even trying to fight Alara anymore. Instead, he smashes his quartz anchor into the control console, screaming, "Protect the silence. Protect your harvest." This isn't just a tantrum, it's a sacrificial trigger. He's calling forth the machine's ultimate defense, unleashing the full power of the negative resonance. And what happens next is pure, high-concept horror. The room is flooded with a blinding white light, and then it appears, not a ghost, not a demon, but something far more terrifying, a colossal churning vortex of pure, black static. Imagine a hole in reality, void that radiates a cold so intense it feels like it's freezing your bones. It literally sucks the light and sound out of the room, creating a vacuum of sensory deprivation. This isn't a monster you can punch or shoot. It's entropy given form, a physical manifestation of chaos and forgetting. It is a brilliant design choice because it shifts the conflict from a physical battle to a conceptual one. How do you fight a void? The vortex immediately identifies the source of the problem. Alara and the little blue device she has clutching. It unleashes a psychic scream, but this time, it's not whispers. It's the amplified sound of 1,000 human failures, a symphony of despair. The sheer force throws Alara back against the amplifier. Her knuckles are white as she holds on for dear life, knowing that if she lets go, the neutralizer and all hope will be swallowed by the static. She is the last line of defense. Her willpower the only thing standing between the world and this all-consuming emptiness. This is where Liam, our steadfast historian, steps up in a huge way. He staggers to his feet, and instead of trying to physically attack the vortex, he uses the only weapon Alara taught him, coherence. He fights the entity's core nature, its power to make the world forget. He starts screaming the names and details of the 2 students, who were the entity's original victims back in 1973. He shouts their stories into the void, forcing this entity of forgetting to remember asterisk. He's not just creating a distraction, he's attacking the very foundation of its existence. It's a powerful act of defiance, using memory as a weapon against entropy. And it works. The vortex shatters, momentarily thrown off balance by Liam's defiant act of remembrance. This is the opening Alara needed. In that split second, she grabs a loose cable and slams it into the neutralizer, finally giving it a stable power source. The blue light instantly intensifies and a soft, rhythmic pulse begins to beat from the device. The counter-frequency is building, a steady heartbeat against the chaotic static of the vortex. The chapter ends on the most intense cliffhanger imaginable. We have this massive black vortex swirling violently, locked in a battle of frequencies with a tiny blue device. It's a war between chaos and order, forgetting and memory, despair and hope. The entity is trying to consume the machine, Alara, and the very memory of its past victims before the counter signal reaches full power. The fate of the entire world, of global sanity, now rests on a tiny piece of tech in Alara's sheer, unbreakable will. It's an absolutely breathtaking setup for the final confrontation. What a chapter! The shift from a physical threat to a conceptual one is just masterful storytelling. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think will happen next? Can the counter frequency fully charge in time? The air crackles thick with a tension you could cut with a knife. This is it, the final, terrifying showdown. Alara's knuckles are white as she clutches the counter-harmonic device. Brilliant blue light pulses from its core, a defiant heartbeat against the encroaching darkness of the negative resonance. It's a desperate pushback, a single point of order against absolute chaos. Standing just a few feet away is Liam. He's exhausted, his body screaming in protest, but his spirit is unbroken. He's become a living anchor to the past, forcing the monstrous entity to confront the faces of its victims, the memories it tried so hard to erase. Every defiant thought, every remembered name is a crack in the entity's entropic shell. It's working. The swirling vortex of nothingness shatters, its coherence fracturing under the weight of remembered lives. The Dean, seeing his grand ritual crumble into dust, lets out a sound that is barely human, a raw, guttural shriek of pure betrayal and despair. His life's work, his dark ambition, is dissolving before his very eyes. With a final maddened roar, he lunges toward Alara. His goal, singular and primal, smash the device, silence the hope, and drag them all down with him. But he's too late. This is the moment Alara has bled for, fought for, and nearly died for. The counter-harmonic device reaches its peak. The small blue light doesn't just glow, it erupts. Blinding, searing white flash consumes the entire chamber, wiping out all sight, all color, all shadow. It's a painful, pure baptism of light. And then comes the entity's final, desperate, cataclysmic answer. A sound that is not a sound. The scream of absolute silence. Imagine not just the absence of noise, but an active, aggressive void that tears at the very fabric of existence. It's a physical force, a pressure wave of nothingness that shatters reality itself. The effect is instantaneous and total. Glass windows explode inward, not not from sound but from the pressure of the void. Metal support beams groan and implode. The camera lens itself seems to warp and distort as if reality is being squeezed through a fist. The colossal amplifier, the heart of the dark ritual, shudders violently. It's thick. Violet cables snap like rotten threads, collapsing into pools of molten slag on the stone floor. The great, churning black vortex of the negative resonance, the monster they fought so hard against, doesn't just fade, it implodes. It shrinks in on itself with shocking speed, collapsing into a single, infinitesimal point before vanishing completely. All that remains is an intense, biting cold that seeps into their bones. When the light finally recedes and the impossible shockwave dissipates, the chamber is a scene of utter devastation. Elara and Liam are slumped against the far wall, thrown there like rag dolls. They're battered, bruised, and bleeding, but they're breathing, they're alive. Of the Dean and his remaining custodians, there is nothing, not bodies, not even ash. They are simply gone, utterly obliterated or absorbed by the residual entropic energy of their own failed creation. The only evidence they were ever here are the small, melted puddles of silver where their pins used to be. The ritual is broken. The amplifier is destroyed. The entity is gone. Slowly and painfully, Elara pushes herself to her feet. The counter-harmonic device in her hand is now just a piece of cold, inert metal. The silence that fills the hall now is different. It's not the oppressive, humming silence of the entity. This is a clean, profound emptiness. It's the sound of true peace. She looks over at Liam. He's staring, wide-eyed and trembling, at the empty space where the vortex had been. They survived. They won, but the look on his face shows the deep, psychological scars that this victory has carved into their souls. Then, Elara looks down at her own left hand. There, etched into her skin, is a faint, shimmering scar. The star-shaped symbol, the key to the great silence, is now a permanent part of her. A chilling, beautiful souvenir of their impossible victory and a constant reminder of the day they stared into the abyss and screamed right back. And let me tell you, the fallout from the scream of absolute silence is absolutely devastating, and it changes everything. The chapter opens in the ruins of the amplification chamber. It's described as a smoking, skeletal wreck. Elara and Liam have survived, but they're battered and their ears are ringing. The key here is the silence. For the first time since this whole nightmare began with Etherid's box, the oppressive negative resonance is gone. There's just a clean, stable quiet. But the price for this peace is immediately apparent. The massive central amplifier is nothing but a puddle of melted junk. And this is where it gets truly unsettling. What happened to the human villains, the Dean, the custodians? They're just gone, vanished. The only things left are their quartz anchor and silver pins, literally fused into the concrete floor. The text says Elara touches the spot and feels a cold, static residue. This is such a brilliant and chilling detail. They weren't just killed. The story suggests they were fundamentally unmade by the entropic power of the entity. It's a terrifying demonstration of what they were truly up against. It's not just a monster, it's a force that can erase existence itself. Amidst the wreckage, Elara finds a flickering control panel. It shows the entity's final data signature, a massive spike of pure negative information, and then a flat line. It seems like a victory. Right, the entity was neutralized, but in its last moment, it unleashed a final, chaotic blast of information. This isn't just an energy discharge. It's a data dump of cosmic horror. This is where the real horror of the chapter sets in, because the physical threat might be gone, but the psychological damage is immense. Liam is completely traumatized. He can barely speak. His nose is still bleeding, and he's muttering fragments of Etherid's old code. It's clear the psychic toll of this event is far worse than any physical injury. Elara realizes that even though the entity is gone, the knowledge of the void, that chaotic information from the final data spike, has been permanently imprinted on their minds. And then comes the final, horrifying reveal. Elara looks at her hand and sees the star-shaped scar she noticed earlier. It's now clearly visible, cool to the touch, and seems to shimmer. It's a brand. When Liam sees it, he frantically checks himself and finds a matching scar on his own wrist, right where he was holding the white noise generator. This ending is just perfect. In the most terrifying way, the entity's final act wasn't defeat. It was an act of propagation. It marked them. It turned them into living carriers of its knowledge. They thought they were fighting to destroy an archive of forbidden knowledge, but in the end, the Asterisk became Asterisk the Archive. They won the battle, but may have just become the seeds for a future, more insidious threat. They are now living, breathing whisperers from the void. What a phenomenal, terrifying twist. The world didn't end with a bang, but with a scream of absolute silence in the aftermath. With the secure compound now a smoking ruin around us, survival became the only instinct that mattered. The entity was gone, but the authorities would be coming, and we couldn't let them find us. We couldn't let them find the truth. We had to escape. We scrambled through the service tunnels, every muscle screaming in protest. We were bruised, exhausted, running on fumes and adrenaline. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the weight on our souls, the silence left behind by. The entity wasn't peaceful, it was a vacuum, void that had settled deep inside us. Liam was unnervingly calm, moving with a detached efficiency. He didn't speak of the visions, of the cosmic horror we had faced. He just gave terse commands, his eyes constantly flicking to the faint, star-shaped scar that now marked his wrist. Permanent reminder of the connection we once shared with that thing. The silence wasn't just around us anymore. It was inside him, too. It was inside me. As we neared the surface, I knew we couldn't just drive away and disappear. Our old lives were gone, burned away in that chamber. We had to erase every link, every digital breadcrumb connecting Alara the archivist and Liam the linguist to this catastrophe. My phone was nearly dead, but it had just enough power. I sent a cryptic message, an anonymous tip to a few trusted academic contacts. Evidence of catastrophic structural fraud, old archive wing. It was a lie, but a believable one. A cover story to bury the impossible truth under a mountain of mundane paperwork and official inquiries. In that moment, I wasn't a researcher anymore. I was a saboteur, a fugitive, slipping past the confused guards who were just arriving to investigate the blast felt surreal. We melted into the gray light of dawn, just two more shadows in a world that had no idea how close it had come to ending. As the first rays of sun touched the horizon, we finally put distance between ourselves and the ruined facility. A glowing wound on the landscape. I pulled out Professor Etheridge's journal, its worn leather cover feeling heavier than ever. His final, frantic entries. I had once dismissed them as the ramblings of a broken mind. Now I saw them for what they were, a map. A desperate, last-ditch guide to salvation written by a man who saw the abyss and threw himself into it to give us a chance. His life, his work, his sacrifice, it all rested on our shoulders now. Miles away, on a quiet, forgotten back road, the car fell silent. I looked over at Liam. He was just staring out the window, his expression blank, lost in the echoing void within. We had stopped the great silence. We had saved the world. But as the silence stretched between us, a terrifying question began to form. How do you save yourself when you've become the archive of a horror that should not exist? The world was safe, but our silence was just beginning. 6 months. Half a year has passed since the deafening silence of the vault gave way to the quiet hum of ordinary life, or what pauses for ordinary now. We find Alara and Liam far from the hallowed, haunted halls of their old university, seeking anonymity in the quiet corners of the world. Alara has taken a position at a small, distant college, a place where no one knows her name, where the shadows of secret societies don't stretch quite so long. Liam, ever the digital nomad, now works as an independent consultant from the quiet house they share. They aren't lovers, not in the traditional sense. Their bond is forged in something far deeper, far more terrifying than romance. They are co-survivors, tethered together by a secret too monstrous to speak aloud. The very silence they fought so hard to protect has now become their cage, the vault, the entity. The name Ethelred. These are words unspoken, ghosts that haunt the space between their sentences. But the past is never truly gone. But the explosive, heart-pounding action has ceased. A new kind of terror has taken its place. A creeping, internal dread that gnaws at the edges of their sanity. Liam bears the heaviest of these. Invisible wounds. He's a man adrift in a sea of silent trauma. You'll see him constantly checking his phone, his laptop, not for emails or messages, but for a sign. A flicker of static, a low-frequency hum that isn't there, a phantom echo of the entity's attack. A ghost in his machine. The everyday world has become a labyrinth he can no longer navigate. He forgets appointments, loses his train of thought mid-sentence, struggles to grasp simple details. It's a terrifying, cruel irony the negative resonance may have been stopped, but its primary weapon, the erosion of memory, continues its work within him. He is living the very outcome they fought to prevent, a slow, quiet unraveling. The entity is gone, but the fear of it, the constant low-grade terror of its potential return, has become his new reality. Ilara's struggle is different, quieter, but perhaps more insidious outwardly. She is the image of composure. She goes through the motions of her new life with a practiced, academic calm. But there's a permanent reminder of the horror etched into her skin, the faint, star-shaped scar. On her hand, it's a physical link to the terror, a brand that never fades. And it's not just a scar. Something else was left behind. She started to notice abilities. When she's faced with a dense historical text or a string of complex equations, the information doesn't just process, it coalesces, patterns, codes. Vulnerabilities, they leap out at her. Solutions blooming in her mind with an unnatural speed and clarity. She's faster, sharper, more brilliant than ever before. She understands with a chilling certainty What has happened in its final, desperate discharge of pure, chaotic data? The entity didn't just die, it imprinted itself onto her, Etherid's forbidden knowledge. The entity's own predatory, cold logic it was all downloaded directly into her consciousness. The true, bone-chilling revelation comes one quiet evening. Elara is working late, wrestling with a cryptographic problem that should have taken weeks, if not months, to solve. But the solution appears in her mind, fully formed in an instant. She scribbles it down, her hand moving with an alien confidence, and then she freezes. The mathematical principle she just used, the key to the entire puzzle, is obscure, non-standard. Its geometry, its core logic, is a perfect mirror of the star-shaped conduit diagram from the vault. The barrier is down. The entity might not be broadcasting its chaos to the world anymore, but the knowledge of that chaos, the source code of cosmic horror, now resides within her. She is smarter, yes, inhumanly so, but her thoughts are becoming frighteningly efficient. Stripped of empathy, alarmingly cold, the chapter and our story for today closes on this terrifying image. Elara sitting alone in the lamplight, staring at the scar on her hand and in her eyes. There's a flicker of something new. It isn't fear. It's a cold, calculating curiosity. She realizes that the silent promise she made to Liam, the vow to contain this secret forever, is beginning to crumble. To truly defeat the ideology that created this monster, she must first understand the monster itself. And to do that, she might just have to become something like it. The quiet that follows the storm is often the most unsettling part. If you're as captivated by Elara and Liam's fate as I am, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens when the weight of knowing becomes too much to bear. Until next time, stay curious. The war against the Great Silence isn't over. It's just entered a terrifying new phase. Elara and Liam are no longer victims running from the dark. They are now hunters forced to wield the very logic of the chaos they fought. Elara uses her chilling, enhanced cognitive abilities, the knowledge imprinted by the negative resonance, to track the remnants of the Dean's secret society. Her first target is the university's hidden financial infrastructure. Using the chaotic pattern recognition granted by the star-shaped scar, Elara bypasses multiple layers of high-level bank encryption and shell company systems that would be invisible to ordinary analysis. She sees the corruption not as numbers, but as entropic pathways, flows of disorder that mirror the entity's feeding cycle. She discovers a series of small, intermittent payments being routed to a secure, private server farm deep in the city, confirming that the conspirators are consolidating their residual assets and planning their next move. Review Insight. This sequence establishes Elara's new role as a morally ambiguous protagonist. She's using the dark knowledge effectively, but the cold competence she displays is unsettling, suggesting a gradual assimilation of the entity's logic. Liam, meanwhile, is their reluctant field expert. He's tasked with physically tracing the digital trail. While monitoring the server farm, Liam experiences a brief, frightening psychic echo. He doesn't hear the hum, but he sees a fleeting violet flicker in the static of his screen, confirming that the servers are not just storage, they are a new localized containment point for residual entropic energy, a digital equivalent of Etherid's old wax cylinder. Two survivors realize their mission is threefold. Locate the server farm, identify the highest-ranking conspirator, and most importantly, find a way to cleanse the tainted knowledge from their own minds before they descend fully into the madness that consumed Etherid. The chapter concludes with Elara printing out the server farm schematic. She traces the pathways, noting that the central core of the building's infrastructure perfectly aligns with the star-shaped symbol. She looks at the faint scar on her hand, a cold, calculated smile touching her lips. They think they can hide chaos in order, she tells Liam, her voice devoid of emotion. They've only made it visible to us. The Whispering Archive, Chapter 31, Weaponizing Chaos. Chapter 31. Weaponizing Chaos. The war against the Great Silence isn't over. It's just entered a terrifying new phase. Elara and Liam are no longer victims running from the dark. They are now hunters forced to wield the very logic of the chaos they fought. Elara uses her chilling, enhanced cognitive abilities, the knowledge imprinted by the negative resonance, to track the remnants of the Dean's secret society. Her first target is the university's hidden financial infrastructure. Using the chaotic pattern recognition granted by the star-shaped scar, Elara bypasses multiple layers of high-level bank encryption and shell company systems that would be invisible to ordinary analysis. She sees the corruption not as numbers, but as entropic pathways, flows of disorder that mirror the entity's feeding cycle. She discovers a series of small, intermittent payments being routed to a secure, private server farm deep in the city, confirming that the conspirators are consolidating their residual assets and planning their next move. Review Insight. This sequence establishes Elara's new role as a morally ambiguous protagonist. She's using the dark knowledge effectively, but the cold competence she displays is unsettling, suggesting a gradual assimilation of the entity's logic. Liam, meanwhile, is their reluctant field expert. He's tasked with physically tracing the digital trail. While monitoring the server farm, Liam experiences a brief, frightening psychic echo. He doesn't hear the hum, but he sees a fleeting violet flicker in the static of his screen, confirming that the servers are not just storage, they are a new localized containment point for residual entropic energy, a digital equivalent of Etherid's old wax cylinder. Two survivors realize their mission is threefold: locate the server farm, identify the highest-ranking conspirator, and most importantly, find a way to cleanse the tainted knowledge from their own minds before they descend fully into the madness that consumed Etherid. The chapter concludes with Elara printing out the server farm schematic. She traces the pathways, noting that the central core of the building's infrastructure perfectly aligns with the star-shaped symbol. She looks at the faint scar on her hand, a cold, calculated smile touching her lips. They think they can hide chaos in order, she tells Liam, her voice devoid of emotion. They've only made it visible to us. If you thought the library was creeping, you're in for a shock. So, Elara's psychic GPS, guided by that terrifying scar, leads her and Liam to a place that looks completely ordinary from the outside. A private server farm on the edge of the city. But this isn't your average data center. It's a fortress of steel and concrete, and Elara feels it instantly, that same oppressive, chaotic energy. This is where the digital ghost of the negative resonance now lives. What follows is one of the most suspenseful sequences yet. It's a perfect blend of our two main threats, the digital conspiracy and the acoustic monster. Liam, our tech genius, goes into overdrive, using his knowledge and the scrambled decryption keys Elara pulled from her own scar. He starts to crack the server farm's insane security. Imagine his fingers flying across the keyboard, sweat beading on his forehead, while Elara stands guard not against people but against sound, listening for any shift in the environment that signals danger. They are literally hacking the ghost in the machine. They finally make it to the main server room. It's huge, cold, and filled with the constant hum of cooling fans. But in the center, something is very wrong. There's a single server rack, isolated from everything else, and it's covered by a custom metal shroud. And etched onto that shroud, you guessed it, the star-shaped symbol. This is the digital sanctum, the new prison for the entity's chaotic energy. That low, pervasive hum we know so well is louder here, confirming that the transfer of the Void's knowledge was a success. Just as Liam plugs in to confront this digital monster, they get a visitor. It's not some robed cultist, it's Mr. Ferris, the university's former chief financial officer. Remember him being mentioned a couple of chapters ago? Well, he's back, and he's not a fanatic. He's a greedy, cold-hearted businessman, the financial brains behind the whole operation. And he's holding a weapon, not a gun, but something far more terrifying, a high-frequency sonic device, custom-made by the custodians to target human organs. This is next-level scary. Ferris lays it all out with chilling corporate anger. The Dean's Society wasn't just about forbidden knowledge, it was about power. They used the entity's chaos to manipulate markets and control politicians. Ferris doesn't care about rituals or ancient entities. He wants the digital archive, the ultimate tool for financial and political domination. This whole conspiracy was a supernatural, hostile takeover. The chapter ends on a horrifying cliffhanger. Ferris raises the sonic weapon, a cold smile on his face. He doesn't just want to stop them. He wants to literally vibrate their organs apart, take the knowledge from their scars for himself, and then erase all the evidence. What a finale. They survive the entity. But can they survive the brutal reality of human greed? This chapter was a masterclass in combining supernatural horror with real-world conspiracy. The stakes have never been higher. What do you think will happen? Can Liam and Elara fight back against a weapon that attacks you from the inside out? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Confrontation with Mr. Ferris, the pragmatic financial architect of the conspiracy, erupts instantly. Ferris doesn't waste time on philosophical arguments. He activates his high-frequency sonic weapon. The device emits an unbearable, localized screech aimed directly at Elara and Liam, designed to exploit the psychic trauma they already carry. The sound is physically painful, causing both of them to seize up as their inner ears and minds are violently assaulted. Liam, however, recognizes the frequency from his earlier work on Etherid's white noise shield. Despite the agonizing pain, he uses a salvaged piece of copper wire to short-circuit a nearby server unit, creating a localized impulse that briefly disrupts Ferris's weapon. This moment of technical brilliance buys them precious seconds. Elara uses the reprieve to charge. At Ferris, the fight is brief but intense. Elara doesn't rely on brute force. She uses the unsettling pattern recognition granted by her scar. She observes Ferris's movements, recognizing the geometric weakness in his stance and attacking the subtle, rhythmic pulse of his sonic weapon control. She smashes a heavy, discarded cooling fan into his hand, forcing him to drop the weapon. With Ferris disabled, they turn their attention to the real threat, the digital sanctum, the isolated server rack, containing the entity as chaos. Elara knows the digital archive must be completely and permanently destroyed. Liam frantically works to overload the server core, attempting to erase the data using a final, catastrophic spike of pure, incoherent code. As Liam types, Ferris recovers and lunges one last time. Screaming about the billions he stands to lose, Elara intercepts him, her face cold and resolute. She shoves him backward directly into the central exposed cooling unit of the server farm. The final terrible irony of the chapter is realized as Liam hits the final code. The digital sanctum explodes in a shower of sparks and entropic energy. Ferris, caught in the blast, is not physically consumed, but his face goes utterly blank, his eyes wide and vacant. The negative resonance has claimed his consciousness, leaving him in a state of eternal, self-inflicted oblivion, a final victim of his own greed. The digital archive is purged, but the cost remains terrifyingly high. The entity might be gone and the digital sanctum purged, but the scars they carry are far from just physical. They are now living with a terrible truth, a knowledge so horrifying it's starting to break them apart. Liam, once the steadfast tech genius, has retreated into himself. He's a shell of his former self. Haunted by what he's witnessed, he spends his days and probably his nights desperately trying to build what he calls a coherence filter. It's a digital shield, a futile attempt to protect his mind from the lingering trauma of the negative resonance. This really grounds the story, showing us that even when the monster is defeated, the psychological battle has just begun. Liam's struggle is a stark reminder of the real, lasting cost of the horror they've endured. Elara, on the other hand, is a different story. She's focused, almost disturbingly so. Her scar, that constant reminder of her encounter, pulses with a faint light whenever she gets close to data linked to the old conspiracy. It is through this strange connection that she realizes a chilling fact. The secret society wasn't destroyed. They're just scattered, lying low, waiting for the world to forget so they can start again. They're like a virus in hibernation. Elara deduces that their most valuable, most protected asset must be their core archive. The original research, the ritualistic knowledge, maybe even writings from before Ethered himself. It's the source code of their entire twisted operation, using the chaotic patterns from her scar. As a key, she launches one final, incredibly complex digital probe. She's not looking for names or bank accounts this time. She's hunting for patterns in global university research grants, specifically targeting obscure acoustic physics and archaic linguistic restoration. It's a brilliant move, searching for the academic roots of their dark science. Her search leads her to a private, secluded research library in Europe. It's geographically separate from the university, but the funding trail is undeniable. It's the same shadowy network. This has to be it. The source archive. We see Elara staring at a screen, the library's serene facade hiding a terrible secret. She knows this place has to be physically destroyed. It's the only way to guarantee the great silence can never be brought back. But then, much colder realization dawns on her. It's not enough to just destroy the building and the bugs. The knowledge itself is the true threat. To truly end it, she has to eliminate every key individual who knows the geometry of that star-shaped symbol, the very key to the great silence. She turns to Liam, who's been watching her in silence. Her voice is cold, measured, devoid of the person she used to be. We can't rely on law or time, she says. The knowledge is the virus. We have the cure, but we are also carriers. We have to finish this completely. We see her preparing a final digital package. It's not designed to steal information. It's designed to trigger a systemic, fatal collapse of the libraries found. Asians, ensuring nothing can ever be recovered. The chapter ends as Elara looks at Liam. He just stares back, his eyes hollowed out by trauma. In that moment, he sees it. He sees that she's no longer just Dr. Elara Vance. She has transformed. She has become something else entirely. She is the keeper of the anti-void, a guardian now willing to use the very chaos she fought against to enforce a new kind of order. It's an absolutely chilling transformation. It leaves us wondering, to fight a monster, has Elara become one herself? The film reaches its chilling, inevitable conclusion. Elara and Liam are positioned in a remote, secure location far from the European Research Library. Elara's face is illuminated by the light of a monitor as she finalizes the digital sabotage. Back at a complex, self-destructing virus encoded with the entropic geometry of the star-shaped scar. This virus isn't designed to steal data. It's designed to trigger a seismic collapse of the library's infrastructure, ensuring the total, unrecoverable destruction of the source archive. Liam sits silently beside her, his demeanor utterly detached. He is fully lost to the entities. Lingering psychological trauma now existing in a state of quiet, perpetual dissociation. Elara looks at him, a fleeting moment of sadness, not empathy, but a cold acknowledgement of their shared, irreversible damage. She knows that to truly neutralize the threat, the two scarred carriers of the knowledge must disappear, lest they become the next Ethelred. Or worse, the new Dean. Elara presses the final key. On the screen, a remote feed shows the lights in the European library flickering once, followed by a systemic, deep structural shudder. The sabotage is successful. The source archive is collapsing, sinking into the earth, permanently burying the conspiracy's last physical trace of knowledge. Elara has won the war. The destruction is a righteous act, but the cold, calculated method confirms Elara has embraced a dangerous detachment to achieve her goals. The final moments are quiet, but profoundly unsettling. Elara deletes every trace of her existence in Liam's from the digital world. She closes her laptop and turns to Liam, speaking for the last time with a voice that is unnervingly calm and devoid of human warmth. We are incoherent to the world now, Liam, and the scar. It is the memory. She touches the star-shaped scar on her hand. It glows faintly, a testament to the chaos she contains. Liam slowly raises his head, looking at her with vacant eyes, but then he breaks into a slow, unsettling, and knowing smile. This is the final terrifying twist. Liam may have lost his memory and coherence, but the entity's knowledge still resides within him, and it acknowledges her transformation. Camera pulls back as Elara leads the silent, compliant Liam away from the remote safe house. They walk into the pre-dawn darkness, fugitives of both law and sanity. The last shot lingers on Elara's retreating back. There's no triumph, only cold, absolute control. The voiceover or final narration suggests that the entity, the negative resonance, may have been defeated in the end, not by goodness or hope, but by someone who learned to wield its own geometric chaos against it, forever ensuring the great silence is enforced not by fanatics, but by its own unwilling. Haunted Custodian. Video begins, perhaps with slow, atmospheric shots of desolate landscapes or empty city streets at dawn. A story that trades a triumphant, explosive finale for a quiet, deeply unsettling victory. Forget the fireworks. This is about the silence that follows. The film's central conflict, the global threat of the negative resonance, isn't defeated in a grand battle. Instead, it's dismantled from the inside out by Elara's cold, calculated act of sabotage. The world breathes a collective sigh of relief, completely unaware it was ever on the brink of an eternal silence. There's no celebration, no parades, just the quiet hum of a world that continues on, oblivious. And in this oblivious world, we find our heroes, Elara and Liam. But are they even heroes anymore? They, ray ghosts moving through the world under layers of digital and physical anonymity in a constant state of transit. They are perpetually on the run, not from an enemy, but from the memory of what they've done. Liam, once a vibrant character, is now a shell. He's a silent, broken mirror reflecting the chaos they fought. He is the living embodiment of the psychological toll of their war, forever haunted by a sonic trauma we can only imagine. Elara's care for him is chilling. It's not born from love or even affection, but from a clinical detachment. It's the cold, hard necessity of protecting the only other person who knows their secret. She's not his partner, she's his warden, his protector, his custodian. Their victory wasn't a ticket to freedom, it was a life sentence of exile. Together but utterly alone. This isn't a happy ending, it's a deeply profound, morally ambiguous state of being. What makes this chapter so compelling is the evolution of Elara's power. The scar on her mind, once a source of pain, has become an unblinking global sensor. She no longer has to search for threats. The knowledge of potential chaos flows into her constantly, like a dark, unending river. She sees the microtrends of social and political instability, the subtle cracks in the foundation of society. She understands these are the fertile grounds where a new threat, perhaps a remnant of the old one, could sprout. She has become a permanent sentinel, forever watching, forever waiting. In a quiet, solemn moment, she performs one last ritual. She systematically destroys every last piece of Ethered's research, every physical note that led them down this path. All that remains is a single, heavily encrypted digital file, a complete mathematical definition of the counter-harmonic frequency. This isn't just data. It's her ultimate insurance policy. It's the one key that can fight the chaos if it ever dares to return. A weapon of last resort locked away in the digital ether. That final scene is where the film leaves its deepest mark. Elara looks at her reflection, and she doesn't see the woman she once was. The fear is gone, replaced by a cold, terrifying efficiency. Her intense focus has reshaped her personality. She is a protector, yes, but she's become dangerously similar to the very fanatics she fought against. Those who crave absolute order at any cost. And that is the terrifying question that lingers long after the credits roll. Is Alara just safeguarding the world, or is she beginning to enforce her own great silence? A new world order where her perfect, cold coherence dictates the rules of safety. The film ends on this heavy note, reminding us that the burden of the custodian is to carry the chaos within, so the rest of the world can live in blissful ignorance, a truly haunting masterpiece. The war was won, but the peace is a lie. The victory over the negative resonance didn't bring parades or medals. It brought silence. For Alara and Liam, the world they saved is a world that can no longer see them. Their ghosts haunting the quiet streets forever marked by the battle they fought in the shadows. Liam, he's a living monument to the chaos we faced. His mind was shattered in the final confrontation, a price paid to contain the entropic horror. He rarely speaks, but I can feel it. Faint echoes of that terrible power still resonate within him. A constant low hum of cosmic static. And me, I am his keeper, his sentinel, the only one left who remembers, who understands the terrifying truth we carry. My scar, the star-shaped brand left by the entity, was once a warning system, an alarm for old threats, but now it's picking up something new. It's not the supernatural howl of the resonance. This is different. It's cold, calculating. It hums with the chilling precision of global intelligence agencies. They're not interested in destroying the chaos Liam and I hold. They're interested in harnessing it. They see our knowledge not as a curse to be purged, but as the ultimate weapon. The horror isn't cosmic anymore. It's human. It's geopolitical. When we destroy the Dean's archives, we thought we were erasing the threat. We were wrong. We didn't erase the world's curiosity about the great silence. We just made the information priceless. And my scar, this damnable pulsating scar, is now the only key. It's the user manual for entropic warfare, the weaponization of despair, of memory, of social collapse. I become the most valuable commodity in a world hungry for power. So now, I fight a new war, an invisible war. It's a high-stakes digital chess match against faceless enemies with infinite resources. And no morality. I'm building firewalls in my own mind, creating counter-surveillance protocols that shift and change with every passing second. The other day, it happened, a trap, so subtle, so elegant. It was almost beautiful. I wasn't looking at a screen, at lines of code. Through my scar, I saw it for what it was, a geometric snare, a digital web woven in the shape of a star. It was a mirror of my own wound, designed to lure me in, to capture the chaos in my head. In an instant, I saw its every connection, every backdoor, every trigger, and I dismantled it, not with a keyboard, but with a thought, a single focused burst of will. That's when the terrifying reality hit me. My knowledge, this connection to chaos, doesn't just make me a target. It makes me the most dangerous person on Earth. I am a singularity, a living weapon that every global power is now desperate to control or destroy. There is no going back. There is no hiding. Looking at this satellite map, at the winding roads that lead to our next anonymous safe house, I feel a cold resolve settling in. Retied to my old life, to my own humanity, must be cut. To protect the world, to keep this terrible geometry of truth hidden, I must remain a ghost, an unblinking sentinel forever on watch. The fight is far from over. It's just beginning. We've got a long, dark road ahead. Have you ever wondered what the true price of saving the world is for Alara? The hidden sentinel standing between humanity and utter chaos, that price is her own soul. Her life has become a relentless war of attrition fought not on battlefields, but in the silent, digital trenches against global intelligence agencies and the terrifying echoes of the great silence. She's been fighting alone, a ghost in the machine, her only ally the cold. Perfect logic granted by the star-shaped scar on her hand. But what if that ally was secretly her greatest enemy? This is where her fight turns inward. The scar, once a simple key to unlocking forbidden knowledge, has begun to evolve. It's no longer just a sensor, it's a parasite, and it's starting to demand payment for its insights. We find Alara neck deep in a new, impossibly complex decryption, a coded message, intercepted from a shadowy group trying to replicate the very entropic theory that nearly ended everything, as she pushes her mind to its limits, trying to wrestle the chaotic data into a coherent pattern. The scar ignites, and excruciating, burning pain shoots up her arm. But through the agony comes a flash of absolute, terrifying clarity. The code shatters before her. Instantly, she sees the flaws, the amateurish mistakes in the imitator's theory. The patterns become a simple, geometric language she can read as easily as a child's book. The insight is addictive, a rush of pure, unparalleled intellect. She has the answer. But with this new power comes a horrifying realization. The scar is a living filter. It grants her the logic of the void, the ultimate weapon against chaos, but it feeds on her in return. Every time she draws upon its power, it consumes a tiny piece of her humanity, her empathy. Her compassion, the messy, beautiful, illogical parts that make her Elara. The more she fights chaos, the colder she becomes. She's turning into a machine, a perfect logical engine of decryption. And someone is noticing. Liam, her silent, shattered companion, watches her from the periphery of his broken consciousness. He can't feel the scar's fire, but he is uniquely sensitive to the chilling shift in her very aura in a rare moment of lucidity. As Elara clutches her burning hand, his eyes fix on the glowing mark. He whispers a single, haunting phrase, a fragment from a past tragedy from Etherid's final. Desperate moments, it feeds the silence. Elara, not you. The warning is clear. A ghost echo from a previous war. The entity's goal was never just to spread chaos. It was to eradicate human subjectivity entirely. The scar is simply a more patient, more insidious weapon to achieve that end through its host. But Elara can't stop. She ignores the warning. The mission is too vital, the threats too numerous. The knowledge the scar provides is the only thing keeping the world from falling apart. She successfully deciphers the plot, dismantling the rogue faction's plan and preventing another localized entropic event, a victory. By all accounts, but as the immediate threat fades, the victory feels hollow, empty. The camera settles on her face, her eyes are sharper than ever, and her expression a mask of flawless, calculating intellect. But the warmth, the flicker of the woman she once was, is gone. She has won the battle, but she is losing the war for herself. She has become the perfect weapon against chaos, a slave to the very geometric perfection she fights. Cost of keeping the world safe is and always has been Elara's soul. We need to talk about the ending, about Elara, and about that final, horrifying realization. The story brings us to its devastating conclusion years after the primary conflict. Elara has succeeded, has neutralized the global threat, the negative resonance, and saved humanity from annihilation. But this victory feels hollow, doesn't it? We find her and Liam living in a sterile, silent world of their own making. Their ghosts in a world they fought so hard to protect. Elara is no longer the frantic researcher we once knew. She's become a perfect, logical machine. Liam, on the other hand, is a shadow, a silent, broken witness to her transformation. The film paints this terrifying utopia with cold, precise strokes. The world is safe from grand, entropic chaos. The major conspiracies and existential threats are gone. Elara, using the very geometry of the void she fought against, has imposed a perfect coherence upon the world. She now monitors humanity's slow, natural disorder with the detached precision of a god. The star-shaped scar on her hand, once a burning brand of her struggle, now glows with a faint, steady light. It's no longer a wound, it's a part of her. The knowledge has been fully integrated in a scene that will surely haunt audiences for years. Elara stands before a vast digital map of the world, her work complete. She turns to Liam, who sits gazing blankly at a static television screen, a symbol of his own disconnected state, for the first time in what feels like an eternity. Her voice is not a command or a calculation. It's a flat, final statement. It is over. The great silence is now contained. It's a declaration of victory, but it sounds like an epitaph. And this is where the genius of the story reveals itself in one shattering moment. Liam, with the last ounce of his former self, final spark in the encroaching darkness, performs one last, meaningful act. He slowly raises his own scarred wrist, but he doesn't point at the map, the world she saved. He points directly at Elara's hand, and then, with tremendous effort, his fingers trace the complex, star-shaped symbol in the air. For a fleeting second, his eyes clear, filled with a terrible, lucid understanding. He isn't just pointing at her scar, he's pointing at the knowledge she now wields. This is the final, brutal twist, the ultimate, horrifying truth. Elara is the living archive of the negative resonance, the entity, the chaos. Didn't need a machine to win. It needed a perfect, intelligent, and fanatical host to preserve its logic forever. It needed its greatest enemy to become its eternal guardian. Elara looks at her own hand, at the symbol she now embodies, and a single tear falls. It's the last, dying flicker of her original humanity, and she wipes it away with the flawless efficiency of her new self. She understands the entity achieved its ultimate victory not by destroying the world, but by turning its most brilliant opponent into its own unblinking custodian. She saved the world by sacrificing her soul, by becoming the very geometric logic of the chaos she sought to destroy. The war is over and the machine won by reprogramming its operator. Final shot is unforgettable, the faint, steady glow of Elara's scar, the only true light in the room as she turns her gaze back to the world map. Forever it's silent. Perfect keeper. It's a masterpiece of cosmic horror, leaving us to question the true cost of victory. In fact, the most haunting question is the one left unanswered. What becomes of the perfect, orderly machine once the chaos it was built to fight is finally gone? We're left with Elara, the lonely guardian of a world now flawless in its geometric stability. But her victory is a tragic paradox. She holds all the knowledge of the universe, yet she's been stripped of the very human warmth that once fueled her mission. And there's Liam, the eternal observer, the last mirror reflecting the immense cost of her triumph. This final chapter is a deep dive into reflection, forcing us to contemplate the chilling endgame of the negative resonance's logic. Elara, in her cold, calculated state, finally grasps the fundamental flaw in the entity's design. Chaos, it turns out, is a parasite. It can't exist on its own. It needs a constant source of subjective human coherence to feed on and give it form. It used Etherid, it used the Dean, and ultimately it used Elara, turning their minds into temporary homes for its formless, destructive logic. The film's ultimate message isn't about good versus evil, it's a profound philosophical warning. The battle against chaos is a symbiotic one, a dangerous dance where the fighter risks becoming the very weapon they wield. Elara now understands this with terrifying clarity. She looks at the scar on her hand and sees it not as a wound, but as a living artifact, a remnant of the Void's cold, calculating intelligence. And she realizes the entity's ultimate goal was never just order, it was total, absolute coherence, a true great silence. In this new, silent world, there's one final piece of a puzzle that doesn't fit. One last source of messy unpredictability, her own human body. The biological processes, the very things that make her alive, are the final bastion of incoherence. The scar, that last conduit of the entity's knowledge, will inevitably seek to correct this final flaw. It will try to eliminate its host, and then we get to those devastating final moments. The camera zooms in on Elara's hand, the scar, which had been a steady, faint glow, suddenly pulses a single, cold, perfect wave of light travels up her arm and vanishes into her. She freezes, her eyes widen, and for the first time in years we see a flicker of genuine emotion, pure human fear. In that instant, she understands the final, inevitable calculation to achieve total coherence. To complete the entity's work, she must eliminate the greatest remaining source of biological instability herself. As this final wave of human dread washes over her, Liam performs his last, most meaningful act. He sees her terror, understands her fate, and reaches out with a trembling hand to grasp hers. It's one final, desperate attempt at subjective human connection. Flicker of warmth against the encroaching, infinite cold of the void. And on that ambiguous, heartbreaking image of touch, desperate contact, the screen cuts to black. The fight against the archives whispers may be over, but the war for what it means to be human continues, now raging within its last. Scarred custodian, what an ending. It leaves you breathless, thinking about the nature of ordered chaos, and the price of perfection. The logic of the negative resonance was absolute, a chilling equation demanding a final, perfect solution. My own self-destructs to achieve absolute coherence. I had to cease to be. I fought back. I messy, unpredictable humanity rebelling against its cold, fatal calculation, but the strain was immense, a war between my own spirit and the scar's geometric perfection, and it was tearing me apart. In this terrifying stasis, only one variable remained unaccounted for, Liam, the silent sentinel of chaos, a walking paradox the entity could never solve. The battle inside me was starting to manifest on the outside, the star-shaped scar on my hand. Once a faint shimmer was now a tangible threat. It pulsed with a low, persistent heat. Physical sign that the coherent knowledge sealed within was actively trying to overwrite my very biology. The seizures started, small micro-seizures, they called them. Blinding flashes of absolute, crystalline knowledge would flood my mind, only to be followed by waves of searing pain as my body fought back, rejecting the flawless logic that sought to consume me. My vision would sharpen into perfect, geometric clarity, every line and angle defined, then collapse into a blur of agony. We found refuge in a secluded coastal town, a place forgotten by the world. I spent hours staring at the ocean, watching the waves crash against the shore. It was the perfect symbol of natural, beautiful, and utterly unpredictable chaos. And in that roaring, untamable expanse, I finally saw the flaw in the entity's logic. It was designed to process systemic, pattern failures, the predictable flaws of human systems. But it couldn't account for true randomness, for the wild, glorious disorder of nature itself. It couldn't compute the ocean. It couldn't compute chaos. Then something shifted. For the first time since our escape, Liam acted with a purpose detached from the trauma that haunted him. He walked towards me as I stood by the water's edge, his eyes still distant, lost in a world I couldn't reach. He didn't speak. He simply reached out, extending his scarred wrist, gently pressed his own faint, star-shaped mark against the heated, throbbing scar on my hand. Contact was instantaneous, catastrophic. A violent surge of energy erupted from our joined hands, a blinding flash of blue light, the color of the counter-harmonic, tangled with the deep violet of the entity's power. Perfect knowledge within my scar violently tried to process and purge the incoherent trauma. that radiated from Liam S., but his mind was already shattered. It couldn't be cleansed in the way. The entity understood. Instead of being erased, his brokenness absorbed the onslaught, taking in the energy and redistributing it. Our scars became opposing poles, forcing the residual entropic energy not into a final, destructive burst, but into a contained, closed-loop feedback cycle. The surge subsided as quickly as it had begun, leaving us both unconscious on the sand. When I woke, the world was quiet. The searing pain in my hand was gone. The scar was no longer hot. It was cold, inert, just a pale mark on my skin. The relentless flood of absolute dehumanizing knowledge had ceased. I felt ordinary, flawed, messy. I had lost the perfect coherence that was killing me, but in its place, I had regained myself. But freedom came at a price. Liam remained catatonic, his silent sacrifice having absorbed the final, fatal burst of logic meant for me. In the end, the singular point of hope wasn't a machine or a grand strategy. It was the unpredictable, chaotic, and selfless love of one flawed human being for another. It was Liam. Thank you for joining me on this part of the journey. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more. Your support means the world. See you next time.